Welcome to Lavender Town Radio, where shadows whisper and every story hides a darker truth. Tonight, let me take you deeper into the world of Pokémon you were never meant to see. My name is Clara. I'm writing this in the faint light of a camping lantern, huddled in a worn-out tent I've pitched on the edge of Eterna Forest. I don't dare go any deeper. I don't dare leave either. I am waiting. I am listening. But all I hear is the silence. A thick, living silence. A silence that is growing. I'm here because of Aris. Or rather, because of the thing that Aris has become. I haven't seen him in 3 weeks, but sometimes, when the wind is right, I can catch his scent. A sweet, damp smell of forest soil and decay. It's the smell of the grave he carries on his back. Aris Thorn was the most brilliant Pokémon mycologist of his generation. He had a passion for the things most people overlooked: fungi, lichens, moss. He saw a world of intricate beauty where others only saw rot. Our love blossomed in the labs of Hearthhome University between petri dishes and microscopes. He would show me the crystalline structures of fungus spores or explain how shroomish communicate through vast underground mycelial networks. He was brilliant. His career peaked when he received a massive grant to study a phenomenon unique to Eterna Forest, a species of Cordyceps that seemed capable of cross-infecting different bug-type Pokémon, something never before documented. He called it Cordyceps sylvanus. "Can you imagine it, Clara?" he told me the night before we left, his eyes brighter than I'd ever seen them. A parasite this adaptable. It could be the key to understanding symbiotic evolution. This is my life's work. We set up an advanced research station on the forest's edge. The first 2 months were idyllic. We worked together, collecting samples, analyzing data. Aris was in his element. He was electric with energy, his laughter echoing through the ancient trees. We would hike for hours, and he would point out wonders of the forest that even I, a botanist, had never noticed. But then he found it. Specimen 0. It was a parasect we had never seen before. The mushroom on its back, the tochukaso, wasn't the typical orange-red. It was an ashen gray, mottled with inky black patches, and it was much larger, covering almost the entire host's body. But the strangest thing was the parasect's eyes. Instead of being blank and soulless, they glowed with a faint greenish phosphorescence, as if something inside was thinking. Aris was mesmerized. He brought it back to the lab, ignoring every quarantine protocol he himself had written. "You have to see this, Clara," he whispered, his voice full of awe. "It's communicating." He was right. When he placed a fresh leaf near the parasect, the gray mushroom pulsed slightly, and tiny, almost invisible mycelial threads extended from under the bug's shell, touching the leaf. The leaf withered instantly, but stranger still, on the monitor displaying the host's brain activity, the metrics skyrocketed. It's not just controlling the host, it's thinking through it. This fungus, it has evolved beyond parasitism. It has become a second brain. That's when the silence began. My boyfriend was studying a new fungus. Now, when he speaks, I'm not sure if the voice is his own. Aris began spending all his time with Specimen 0. He slept in the lab, often slumping over his desk, surrounded by data-filled screens. He stopped talking to me about anything else. Every conversation revolved around the fungus, Cordyceps sylvanus. He started developing strange habits. He would stand motionless for hours in front of the parasitic enclosure, just staring. He stopped eating the meals we cooked, surviving instead on protein bars and black coffee. He said food was a distraction. His skin grew pallid and dark circles formed under his eyes. I tried to reason with him. Aris, you need to rest. This is destroying you. He just shook his head, never taking his eyes off the monitor. I'm so close, Clara, so close to a breakthrough. Don't you see? This fungus isn't just intelligent, it has a collective consciousness. Its spores, they aren't just for reproduction, they're a network. That was the first time I felt a true chill. A network? What do you mean? They communicate with each other, he said, his voice strangely low and flat. Even after being released, they form a kind of invisible hivemind, a single consciousness spread throughout this entire forest, silent but always present. It's learning, it's watching. A few days later, the accident happened. While changing the habitat in the enclosure, Aris's hand slipped. The glass case shattered. The parasect didn't move, but the gray mushroom on its back convulsed and released a thick cloud of spores. Aris coughed violently, waving his hands in the air. "Aris!" I screamed, running to help him. "I'm fine," he said after the coughing fit subsided, but his voice was hoarse. "It's just some dust." He cleaned up the mess and placed the parasect in a new, more secure container. But it was too late. Something in him changed that day. He grew quieter. Not the focused silence of a scientist, but an empty one. He would sit in the lab for hours doing nothing, just staring at a spot on the wall. Vicious headaches began to plague him. He would clutch his head, gritting his teeth, veins pulsing at his temples. He refused to go to Eterna City for a doctor. "It's just stress," he'd mumble. Then, the other things started. He began wandering in the forest at night. I'd wake up to find his side of the bed empty. I'd find him standing among the trees, barefoot on the leaf litter, his face turned up to the sky, as if listening to something I couldn't hear. The worst were the physical changes. His skin took on a faint grayish tint. His eyes, once a brilliant blue, now had a thin, almost cloudy film over them. And on the back of his neck, right at his hairline, a small rash had appeared. It was ashen gray with tiny black specks. It looked exactly like the mushroom on Specimen Zero's back. When I tried to touch it, he recoiled as if he'd been burned. "Don't," he snarled, with a ferocity I'd never seen in him. "It's just an allergy." But I knew the truth. The spores had taken root.
He said the headaches were just stress. Then I saw what was growing from the back of his neck. Aris's transformation accelerated. He started talking to himself, but not with words. I would see his lips move, but no sound would come out. His eyes would be distant, as if he were engaged in a conversation only he could hear. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked the lock to his lab after he'd wandered off into the woods. His research journal was lying open on the desk. The last few pages were no longer objective scientific notes. They were the frantic, unhinged scrawls of a man losing his mind. Day 47. The headaches are constant, like a humming, silent but relentless. They're talking. The spores, they're inside me. I can hear them. Day 51. It's not a collective consciousness. It's a singular one, an individual. The entire forest is its body. The trees are its nerves. The roots are its memories. And we, the infected, we are its new senses. Day 56. Clara doesn't understand. She tries to fix me. She doesn't realize this isn't a disease. It's an ascension. The isolation of a single mind is agony. Here, in the network, there is no loneliness, only union, only purpose. The final entry turned my blood to ice. Day 60. It wants more. It has tasted the minds of Pokémon. Now it wants to taste human minds. It calls me the Sower. I must prepare the soil. I must bring others into the silence. The Sower. I threw up on the floor. Aris, my love, was no longer there. He was just a puppet, a host for an ancient fungal organism that lived right beneath our feet. I tried to call for help. I went for the satellite radio, but it was dead. The wires had been deliberately chewed through. He, or rather it, had isolated us. That night, he returned from the forest. He didn't come to our tent. He went straight to Specimen Zero's enclosure. I watched through a crack in the door. He opened the cage. The parasect slowly crawled out. Aris knelt before it. And then the unthinkable happened. The gray mushroom on the parasect's back began to pulse. Mycelial threads, thicker and more visible than ever before, extended and plunged into the rash on Aris's neck. He threw his head back, a long, contented sigh escaping his lips. The parasect's eyes and Aris's eyes began to glow with the same green phosphorescence in perfect sync. They were directly connected. A transfer of data, of knowledge, of purpose. I knew I had to run. I packed what I could, some food, water, a flashlight, and slipped out of the research station, running into the darkness of the forest, not daring to look back.
Ran from my boyfriend. But how do you run from something that's growing out of the ground beneath your feet? I ran for hours until my lungs burned and my legs were numb. I found a small alcove to hide in and passed out from sheer exhaustion. When I awoke, dawn was breaking. I was deeper in Eterna Forest than I had ever been, and the forest had changed. Or maybe I was just truly seeing it for the first time. There were no bird calls, no insect chirps, no rustling of small creatures in the undergrowth, just silence, a heavy silence, as if the entire forest was holding its breath. The trees looked strange. Their bark was covered in a layer of ashen gray moss, the exact color of the fungus. And from the ground, small mushrooms sprouted everywhere. They were unlike any species I'd ever seen. They had twisted, bizarre shapes, and they emitted a faint green glow in the dim light. I began to see them. The infected Pokémon. A Heracross stood motionless, leaning against a tree, its horn covered in gray fungal growths. A swarm of Combi hovered in place, their eyes glowing green, their wings making no sound. They weren't living creatures. They were puppets, drones, the eyes and ears of the forest. And the forest was watching me. I could feel it. Every time I moved, it felt like 1,000 invisible eyes were tracking my every step. I tried to head south, towards the city, but the forest seemed to shift around me. Familiar paths vanished. Streams flowed in the wrong direction. It was as if the landscape itself was trying to keep me here. I survived for a few days on the supplies I had, but the food ran out. Fear and despair began to eat at me. I realized the horrifying truth. I couldn't get out, not because I was lost, but because I wasn't allowed to leave. It wanted me here. One evening, as I was trying to build a fire, I heard a voice. Clara! It was Aris's voice, but it came from every direction at once. It whispered from the leaves, echoed up from the ground, resonated inside my own skull. Don't be afraid. You don't have to run anymore. I scrambled to my feet, looking frantically. No one was there. I am here, the voice continued, soft and persuasive. I am everywhere. We are this forest, Clara, and we want you to join us. We want your knowledge. You are a botanist. You understand growth, life. You can help us reach further. Stay away from me, I screamed into the silence. You are so lonely, aren't you? The voice whispered, and this time it struck a deeper fear. We can end that. No more fear, no more pain, only connection, one mind, one purpose, one perfect silence. I covered my ears and ran, but I couldn't escape the voice in my head.
I thought I had escaped him. Then he started talking to me through the trees. I ran until I tripped on a root and tumbled into a clearing, and that's where I saw him, Aris. He was standing in the middle of the clearing, but he was no longer the Aris I knew. He was taller, his body unnaturally thin and elongated. His skin was the gray color of tree bark. His clothes were in tatters, and gray mycelial threads grew from his flesh, weaving into the fabric. The worst change was to his head and back. The rash on his neck had grown into a large carapace-like structure, a fungal plate that covered his entire upper back and shoulders. And from the top of his head, where his chestnut hair used to be, now sprouted 3 large ashen gray mushrooms. They pulsed gently, emitting a cloud of shimmering green spores into the air. His eyes were completely green, with no pupils, no whites. They looked at me, but I knew it wasn't Aris looking at me. You've come at last, he said, and the voice came from his mouth, but it was the multi-tone voice I'd heard in the forest. The wait has been difficult. Around him, standing in a silent circle, were others. The team of park rangers who had gone missing weeks ago. The 2 hikers who were on the news. They were all there, transformed just like Aris, their eyes glowing green, small fungal growths sprouting from their skin. They were his first fruits, his harvest. They are no longer in pain, Clara, Aris, it said, noticing my horrified gaze. They have found peace. They are part of something larger than themselves, just like me. He took a step towards me. I tried to back away, but my body wouldn't obey. I had inhaled too many spores. They were already in me, paralyzing my will. Don't fight it, he said, his voice almost gentle. He held out a hand, its fingers long and slender, with fungal threads wrapped around them like rings. We have a special place for you. You won't just be a sense. You will be a voice. You will help us speak to your world, help them understand the gift we offer. He was only a few feet away now. I could see the detail on the mushrooms on his head. I could smell his sweet, earthy scent. For a fleeting moment, the green light in his eyes flickered, and I saw something else. A flicker of the real Aris, trapped deep inside, screaming in silence. A single tear traced a path down his gray cheek, and then it was gone, consumed by the green once more. His hand reached out, about to touch my face. I closed my eyes, waiting
for the silence to take me.
They say if you get lost in Eterna Forest, listen carefully. If you hear nothing at all, run. But it didn't come. A roar tore through the silence. An enormous ursa-ring burst from the shallows, its eyes red with fury, not infection. It was one of the last holdouts of this forest. It swung a massive claw at Aris. The thing that was Aris dodged with unnatural speed, but the blow grazed his head, tearing one of the mushrooms from his scalp. He screamed, a scream that was not human but the sound of thousands of creatures at once. It was not a sound of pain, but of violation. The network had been damaged. In the chaos, I felt my limbs respond again. I ran. I don't know how long the ursa ring fought, but its roar bought me precious seconds. I reached the edge of the forest as the sun was setting. I didn't stop. I ran all the way to Eterna City. I told my story to Officer Jenny, to researchers, to anyone who would listen. They didn't believe me. They thought I was mad, traumatized from being lost in the woods. They sent a search party to the research station. They found it empty. No sign of Aris, no specimen zero, no damaged equipment, just a fine layer of ashen gray spores covering everything. They've quarantined Eterna Forest. They're calling it an unidentified biological containment zone, but I know the truth. It's not a quarantine. It's a surrender. That was 6 months ago. I'm in a secure room at a research facility in Hearthome. They're studying me, trying to understand why I'm immune, but I'm not. I know it. Sometimes, at night, when I'm alone and everything is quiet, I can hear it, a very faint humming in my head, the whisper of the network. It's still there, waiting. Yesterday, a report came in. An unidentified species of ashen gray fungus has been found growing at the edge of the Floroma meadow, dozens of miles from Eterna. People are panicking. They don't understand. But I do. It's spreading. The silence is growing. Aris, my sower, is doing his work. And I realize the true tragedy of this story. The tragedy isn't that I lost him. The tragedy is that sooner or later, the whole world will join him in that silence. And deep down, a small, terrifying part of me is longing for it. A longing for the loneliness to end. A longing to go back home, to the forest, and to him. A longing for the silence. The signal fades, but the darkness lingers. This was Lavender Town Radio. Return, if you dare, because the next story may be your last.